X-Men Fantastic Four issue 1 sees Franklin Richards recount his storied life and how he developed powers that could create entire universes, but his power drains every time he uses them, making him know that his time with the Fantastic Four is limited since he soon won't have powers anymore, and because of it, he doesn't dream of a future anymore because there isn't one for him. On the beaches of Krakoa, Kitty and the Marauders arrive on the island. The team disembark from the ship, finding Kid Omega is going shopping in London, making a snide remark about how Kitty can't use the portals. The Cuckoos arrive, using their powers to stun Kid Omega for his slight against Kitty, telling him not to be so rude. As he leaves, the twins tell Kitty that Xavier wants to see her. Storm says that she is going to tend to her garden, but if there's a mission that comes up, Kitty is to alert her. Kitty goes to see Xavier, learning that they have a situation that involves Franklin Richards. Eric tells them that the Fantastic Four recently thwarted a minor alien invasion, or at least Franklin did. Xavier explains that Franklin is an Omega level mutant, and for the longest time they have been content with letting him be with his family. But he knows Sue and Reed are terrified of what their once quote-unquote human son is becoming. But now Franklin is a young boy again thanks to a multiversal adventure, a boy who can question his place in the world. Kitty knows that Franklin needs his people, but learns his powers are depleting and they need to help him before his powers are truly gone. Xavier says that this is where Kitty comes into it, since she has a history with Franklin, and out of all of them, he trusts her the most. Kitty doesn't know if he will remember their time together, but Xavier says he does, telling her to head to New York and meet the delegation. Leaving the council, Kitty visits Logan, giving him his beer and telling him that she has been tasked with recruiting Franklin Richards. Logan knows that Franklin isn't a kid, comparing it to how Kitty was once 13 when she came to the mansion, walking through walls, and once a kid can do that or shoot lasers from their eyes, they grow up fast once learning that they are a mutant. At Yancey Street, Franklin and Reed run tests on Franklin's powers, but the results are always the same. His powers are still draining. Franklin gets up to leave, telling his father he appreciates him taking time off from solving literally every problem to do this, storming out of the room. Sue wonders if this was about his powers again, and Reed knows it is, but he can't understand why Franklin would be disappointed in being human. Sue knows how her son must feel, equating it to how she was once a star soccer player in her teenage years, until she broke her ankle and her career ended because of it. She says Franklin is young and trying to find his place in the world, and it's tricky enough without being in the Fantastic Four. Franklin meanwhile goes to see Ben at the diner, who gets what he's going through, but also tells him having powers isn't everything. Franklin knows that it's not the same with him, since there wasn't any downside to his powers like there are with Ben's. Ben knows that Reed is doing the best, but Franklin thinks otherwise, since there are two problems that Reed Richards can't solve, him and Ben. Franklin is quick to say that it's not on purpose, but his father always acted strange with him having so much power, and maybe he unconsciously not trying to help cure his powers. Ben knows that Reed is a good man and cares for them, and if he couldn't fix them, he would tell them for sure. Soon Johnny comes in to tell them that they have visitors, but they are not the good kind. Outside, the X-Men have arrived and are being kept at bay from the apartment by Sue Shield. She asks why they are there, and Xavier says that they are there for the future and for the birthright of Franklin. Franklin soon arrives, meeting with Kitty, who just phases through the shield to hug him. The X-Men are brought up to the apartment, and Xavier says that things have changed now. Reed knows they have since he changed them, but Xavier says that this is just the next logical step after years of persecution. But Reed says that they act like they're above humanity, buying them off with gifts. Magneto says that they are above them, but Xavier tells them that they are merely the next step in evolution, and they need to do what's right for them and the world, which includes the protection of mutant kind, including Franklin. Sue says that her son is not going to Krakoa since the family aren't about segregation, and she wants her children to be part of society where they can learn and grow with many different people, hence why they live on Yancey Street, to be around people. Magneto says that doing so has endangered these people. He goes to try and take Franklin from the house, but Sue traps him in one of her invisible shields, throwing him away. Xavier threatens Sue, but Reed steps in, saying that they will handle this by talking, not with his mental violation. situations. Kitty and Franklin meanwhile duck out of the apartment as outside, Storm tells Ben that the only way to protect their kind is to be together on Krakoa, but Ben doesn't like that idea and doesn't find it safe since the island is basically a new Genosha. Franklin and Kitty fly across the street and Kitty asks what Franklin wants to do. The boy doesn't know what he wants. He knows the mutants could help him with his powers, but he knows his parents will lose their minds if he goes with them. Kitty says that no matter what he decides, she will back him up and won't let Charles push him into doing something he doesn't want to. Soon they arrive at the New York Krakoan Gateway, and Kitty says that with it, he would be this close to his family always. Johnny soon arrives, demanding to know what Franklin is doing, thinking that Kitty is trying to kidnap him while everyone else is arguing. Johnny is suddenly thrown away by the arrival of Storm and the X-Men, who say that Franklin has diplomatic immunity. Reed and Ben arrive, saying that the people who usually need diplomatic immunity are the ones doing things wrong. Sue traps Pyro and Bishop in a shield, throwing them into a bus and telling them that this fight is over. The fight is far from over, however, as Magneto begins throwing cars at her, despite Xavier telling him not to escalate the situation. Xavier tells Reed that it didn't have to be like this, and Reed knows it didn't, but Xavier is forcing a situation that would have resolved itself in time. He tells Xavier that his son is almost a man, and in a few years he would surely visit Krakoa on his own and maybe even stay for good. But Xavier has a timetable, and that's why Reed is suspicious of him. Kitty meanwhile tells Franklin to do what he wants to, so as the X-Men and the Fantastic Four fight, Franklin rushes the gateway, but he merely falls through it. Heroes wonder how that is possible, and Reed reveals that he created a device that masks his mutant gene, preventing him from accessing the gateways. Franklin is outraged, but Reed says that it was for his own protection since he was too young to go to Krakoa. Franklin storms off as Xavier leaves, telling Reed that he really was right about it being just a matter of time. Later, Franklin tells Val what happened, who agrees their father shouldn't have done that to him. Franklin knows that he has always been treated like a child, first with the tracking chips they have had installed in them and now this. Val thinks that they should mess with the tracking chips as Reed is confronted by Ben in his lab. Ben isn't too impressed with how he handled the situation. He leaves, saying that there is a lineup of people waiting to yell at him. Reed says that he was just trying to protect his kids, and Sue knows that, and knows that she would have killed the mutants if they took her son. But even then, what Reed did was wrong, and they can't change their son. Reed knows this, but he just keeps looking for a scientific way to solve the problems, like he does with every problem. On Krakoa, Scott learns from Xavier that their mission didn't go so well. However, Charles suspects that Franklin won't stay away from Krakoa for long. Out on the rough seas, Kitty captains the Marauders towards their next mission, telling Pyro to wake up Storm to clear the skies and sea. She opens up a compartment to get some flares out, shocked to find that Franklin and Val are hiding in it. Franklin says that he wants to go to Krakoa now, but Kitty wonders why Val, a human, is there with him, and Val says that she wants to make sure her brother gets to where he wants to go, and she wants to see Krakoa. Kitty says that they aren't actually going to the island. They were after a boat of refugees that was stranded out in the ocean. Suddenly, the boat is attacked by something and lifted out of the water by giant robotic arms. Robotic arms that belong to Doctor Doom, who demands to know where the X-Men's father Xavier is. X-Men Fantastic Four issue 1 was a great beginning to a story that really is the first fully fledged time the X-Men have interacted with other heroes since setting up Krakoa. Again, I love that the mutants are still being kind of painted as somewhat sinister, and there is definitely something going on with them, specifically Xavier. But I also like how the Fantastic Four, specifically Reed, aren't perfect either, with him basically bugging his son and preventing him from accessing his mutant genes. This issue also made me wonder if Xavier is willing to go to all this effort to have Franklin regain his powers and help cure him of the effect they have of draining him. Would he do the exact same thing for just a normal run-of-the-mill mutant? To me, signs point to no, and I'll be forever intrigued by what he has planned for Franklin and mutants in general, since it doesn't really seem all that good-natured and there is definitely something evil there. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.